Welcome everybody to SEO Office Hours. My name is Michael Chidzey. I'm an SEO here at Good Signals. And part of what we do along with special guests are these office hour sessions where people can jump in and ask their questions around their website and web search. By the way, nobody here is in the hot seat and we might not know all the answers, but hopefully multiple heads thinking about a problem should help. We've got a bunch of questions already submitted, as you can see. If anybody on the call would like to jump in and ask questions, feel free to. Just flag yourself in the chat functionality and I'll make sure we prioritize you. Like every week, with me today is SEO Joe Blogs, Joe Juliana Turnbull. Joe, do you want to introduce yourself and also the speakers?
Yeah, great. Thank you very much, Mike. Yeah, welcome everyone for joining us today on the SEO Office Hours. Really pleased to have Kerstin Reichert and Andy Barr here with us. Kerstin actually, she's been in the SEO industry for some time, and also I've known her coming to some of my Search London events. She's the head of marketing at Seed Legals. She also has experience working at fintech brands. So she was at the fintech brand of Tide, and prior to that, TSB. And prior to that, other insurance and finance company she worked for. So thank you very much, Kerstin, for joining us today. Oh, and she's also a co-author. She contributed to Mastering In-House SEO, and she's been a speaker at many events. And Andy we have as the chief executive of 10 Yetis Digital. It's an award-winning PR and digital marketing agency. Andy regularly speaks at conferences worldwide, all about PR, social media, SEO, and he also contributes to publications like The Drum, The Guardian, Vice, and so many others. And he'll be on their show today, answering also all the digital PR questions. And as Mike mentioned, SEO Joe Blogs, I run a digital remote consultancy business here in Barcelona called Turn Global. And I also run events, Search Barcelona here, we had it last night, and also Search London. Mike and our other friend Tim is actually co-hosting next Tuesday in central London, and we'll share more details about that at the end of the show. I'll pass over to Mike because we've got loads of questions. We better get starting.
We've got millions of questions, as you can see here. And I can't believe you're trusting me with Search London this next week. So it'll be really good. Actually, it's really exciting. So Kerstin is the first in-house person that we've had on here, which I think is really, really good, because I often think, particularly, I obviously work in an agency. I used to work in-house, but it's one of those things that when you're talking about things like core updates or migration issues that have gone wrong, actually, when you're working for an agency, you tend to be there's that sort of step away that you're working on other things as well, and so on. Whereas actually, when you're in-house and something goes wrong, it's the case of redundancies, right? Or it's hiring people if it goes right and all that stuff. And it's also really good to have Andy, because we have had over the last couple of weeks, or since we started this, quite a lot of link building and digital PR questions. And I've actually brought some of them back because I think we haven't really had somebody that really specializes in that area, and so I think that's awesome as well. So thank you everybody for coming, and obviously it's amazing to have you on here, Joe, for what it's worth. But you're on here every week, so I don't need to go through that. Right, let's go for it. So the first question is actually about this, and somebody basically said, so I can answer this: why do you and your guests focus on Google and not other search engines? And to be honest, if anyone's got a question about, Bing or one of the other search engines, happy to answer. The default is always Google, just because of the market share. It's huge in the UK. It's something like 94-95%. Similar in Australia, a little bit less in the US, but still the major search engines. So that's why. But yeah, if you're having issues with Bing, feel free to ask those questions. I like Andy just shrugged there.
Whatever. Bing's for nanas. That's the only people who use it, nanas. So let's stick with Google.
Cool.
I think that's actually a super interesting one, because if you think about it, everything these days is a search engine, right? Whether it's TikTok or Amazon. So you could even do an office hour special for non-Google search related questions.
That's a good one. And we could include actually YouTube as well, because YouTube is its own search engine as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Get rich quick on YouTube.
Basically, my answer was rubbish.
No, it was good. But I wanted to also say in there, obviously we're focusing on, yes, the English version, so Google, but of course, in other markets, for example, China, obviously you have Baidu. So we haven't gone into that yet, but we've only just started. So we could have an international SEO office hours, as in looking at international search engines office hours. We're quite international here anyway, so.
Yeah, anybody can join. But yeah, you're right. We're going to try and make it more relevant to sort of different audiences. Just on that then, does anybody do much with things like TikTok? I know that's something that comes up again and again at different SEO conferences. Andy, you're nodding. What do you do it for clients? How do you use it?
We do it for both, for clients and ourselves. So I think as it emerges as a search or discovery platform, it's getting more and more important for our clients, especially piggybacking on trending news. So obviously today is the day that everyone hates because it's Black Friday in marketing land. But if you look at other trending areas, and if you do short response videos in relation to trending topics, TikTok can quickly become a massive traffic driver to your site. Very similar to YouTube Shorts, actually. We're seeing some huge success on that as well.
Oh, cool. What about you, Kerstin? Do you guys use like not just TikTok, but are there other search engines that matter to seed legals?
I'd love to. I love exploring and testing new things. So unfortunately, no TikTok yet, but it is somewhere on the radar. I think for us, the next most important one would be YouTube, because again, there's so many people on there searching for things, and the topics that we cover are really complex. So just reading about them is not necessarily the best thing, right? You can package everything in short form videos or longer videos or whatever you like. We also run a ton of webinars. So content is already there. So definitely YouTube is the second most important search engine after Google. In our case, it might be different elsewhere.
Yeah, and I guess this is an example of, we put this on YouTube, and that's where most people watch it, is directly on there. I just remember when it comes to TikTok, when I was I think it was something like Brighton SEO one year, and somebody was talking about bed bugs, and they were searching for, they were looking at what to do when you have bed bugs or something like that. And obviously Google, you've got sort of guides and so on that was coming up. And then the TikTok version of it was basically somebody who was showing you a video of what it looks like when when a bed bug bites you. And it's just so different. But to be honest, that one was funny for the actual conference, watching that. But yeah, it's just very different. Right, anyway, let's jump straight on to some of the questions. So this is one that I brought back actually from a few weeks ago, because I'm not sure we really answered it. And obviously we've got Andy here who will know way more about this stuff. So are newswires worth it anymore? And do you want to start?
So I'm now thinking of that famous TikTok. Some of them are good, some of them are a bit not so good. Yeah, so obviously newswires like Press Association, Associated Press, they're the gold tier. They're absolutely fantastic. And then we have some of the regional or maybe national newswires like Jam Press, Caters in the UK. When you get down to things like PR Web, stuff like prweb.com, I think it is, that's absolute crap. There's no value in that. The links that you get, should be I think they are all automatically no follow. Yeah. It's syndicated coverage from what Google probably classes as toxic websites. And, time and time again, people like Google have nuked them because of the absolute spurious rubbish that gets put on there. I think there was one company that claimed Google had bought them and put it on a prweb.com press release, and Google absolutely nuked them, and then nuked all the sites that had run the story as well, because they clearly weren't credible news sites. So no, stick to the big national newswires and the big respectable newswires, and get rid of all those ones that are, pay $1,400 and you'll get 40 links. It's really not worth it.
Great. Yeah, that's way better than the answer we gave the other week. Sort of fumbling away a few weeks ago. Kerstin, do you have anything to add to that, or are you happy if we jump on to the next question?
Next one is fine.
Cool. Okay, so I have two very similar questions. They could be from the same person, but I have a website with thousands of 404 pages. I've added all of the URLs of these 404 pages, which don't have any backlinks, to my robots.txt file, and I'm using the disallow directive. Is this good practice? If I didn't add them to the robots.txt file, would Googlebot perceive my website as unhealthy? And the other question, which is a bit shorter, is I have a website with thousands of pages, out of which 500 of them are marked as no index. Will Google perceive this negatively? So it could be the same person, I'm not sure. Kerstin, are you happy to kick off with that one?
Let me try covering the first one, and then if I don't remember the second one, let's come back to that
sure.
one. But the first one, I would say generally 404s are not necessarily a huge issue. They're part of the internet, so it depends. Oh, I said it depends. But it does depend. What are those pages? You know, do they create a bad user experience? Do people still find them? Or are they just there as a leftover from a migration or a technical issue? So it depends. I would say first thing I would try to do is get rid of the cause of these 404s, like try to fix whatever creates them. If they are relevant pages or if you have new relevant pages, I would try to solve this by implementing redirects and also thinking about the user experience, because no one wants to find 404s. Now, if they just exist for some technical issue that you have on the side, you've solved it, now you just want to get rid of these pages, I would not disallow them in the robots.txt, because then basically if Google doesn't crawl them, then the 404 doesn't get picked up. So I would want Google to find them and then drop them out of the index if they're there. You could try changing the status to 410 to say they're gone instead of not found, then potentially that helps get rid of them quicker. But yeah, again, I would try to fix the root cause first, think about the user experience, and then think about how would I handle these and how can I get them out more quickly, but I would not block Google from finding these.
Perfect. Joe, have you got anything to add?
No, it was a very concise and clear answer. The only thing I was going to say is regarding that second question, if I have a 1,000 pages, I think they were saying 1,000, then 500 under index, so it seems like it was 50%. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
500 of them are marked as no index.
Yeah, so for that, if it was no index, I mean, if they're generally no index because maybe they're redirected or maybe they're canonicalized, then that should be fine. But as Kerstin said, I would actually try in this case to find the root of why do we have half of the pages of the site no indexed.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, let's jump on to the next one. Oh, okay. I thought I'd put this one at the end, but sure, we'll go for it. What does the perfect SEO landing page look like? Obviously, you've just got to check out our websites. Don't check out mine. No, so what does it? Can you think of any websites that you've looked at and you thought that's amazing? I guess just to add to this, obviously, like every website, every person on it, and so on is different. Every product, every service. So, and it depends on the type of page, because you can have like a travel company with a destination page, or you could have a product page or a home page. So I guess straight away it depends on.
It depends.
Pages. It is, and it depends. But have you any particular websites there or web pages that people go back to as inspiration from when you're doing SEO work?
I wanted to actually just say, when we come to like what is the perfect website, I would just like to emphasize that SEO, get your brilliant basics in place. So always have your heading tag, your H1 tag, your H2, your H3 tags, your image alt tags, as well as smaller images on your page. I have found many websites where they have the same H1 and H2 tag, or they don't have any H2 tags and they go straight to an H4. And also be great to put breadcrumb links in your site. It's not just good for the user, but it's also good for search engines to find your page. And interlinking, a lot of times websites are not interlinking enough within one another, or also linking out to other sites. So linking out to any resources that you've used as well. In terms of great websites, there are so many, but I do actually quite like the HubSpot website, and I like their blog, the way it's laid out, the posts. They've got a lot of information. They have clear call to actions, buttons, clear things to download. That's very comprehensive.
Well, can I just dive in on it again? Let's take it back to PR. That's what it's all about. So I think we always say to clients, we are looking to drive a lot of traffic through from authority news sites back to a client site. So what we would typically say to them is, if they're selling something, obviously the landing page has got to have the product front and center, but then the tertiary goals are things like trying to grow their newsletter database. So making sure that the newsletter catch is really prominent on that landing page that we're using in the PR campaign. We also encourage them to pass the equity of the authority links through to the pages of maybe their top selling products as well. So whilst, you know, that's giving absolutely crap advice in terms of what it should look like, that's the core of what I think should be on the page. Brands that I think do it well, so obviously Gymshark are, you know, everybody, you know, has a massive boner for them at the minute. They do it really, really well. And obviously Nike, I fell into this realm of trying to understand headless. I need to have a one-to-one lesson from Kerstin. I fell into this trap at the minute of trying to learn about headless e-commerce sites, which I didn't know about, if I'm honest, until yesterday when I was frantically researching for my homework for this. So people like Nike are doing amazing things with that as well.
Cool. Yeah, and Kerstin?
Everything Andy and Joe just said, I would add, yeah, definitely linking, internal linking, external linking, a great structure, not just thinking about search engines. Of course, search engines need to be able to crawl, vendor, index your content, otherwise it just won't show up, no matter how beautiful your pages look. And then I would also think about what type of page. Is it a product landing page? Is it e-commerce? Is it information? Is it a blog? Some examples that I like for different reasons. I think Healthline are very good with informational content. They have a lot of trust signals and authority signals, so I think they're doing very well. Shopify also for product pages, and also their blog. Canva as well. Canva do a really fantastic job in integrating informational content with their product journey and basically mixing that together, so it's informational but direct way into the product sign-up journey. So those I would look at for reference.
Great. I was going to say Healthline as well, actually. I think they're so good. I always used to use greatest.com for any kind of editorial ideas, and they were bought by Healthline, and I think they both kind of do similar things. What I like about both of those, so obviously you've got everything's fact checked and reviewed and so on. I think they were doing that before EAT was even a thing, but I always liked the fact that they had a unique angle on things. So you might have the same information that everybody else has on blog posts, but they always had their unique spin and so on. And I always used to think that was probably one of the reasons they always rank really well, is that they were offering something different to the other sort of 10 results on that particular page. So from an editorial perspective, those guys, and actually the person that set up Greatest then went on to set up a company called Neswell, which annoyingly is just literally they've just stopped. But if you can go back on Wayback Machine, you can look at a lot of their content, and they took those same ideas from like Greatest and Healthline and so on, where, you know, the kind of ego bait stuff and almost like the best guides on a particular topic and all of that. So I always use, whenever I'm working with people, I always like look at resources like that and then think, what's this company's version of this and so on, and particularly if it's a different industry. A thing that we do, and this could be helpful for this person, is we just analyze the search results for the most competitive terms. So terms like car insurance, like, you know, they're not necessarily that sexy in terms of terms, but terms like car insurance, coffee, you know, women's clothes, men's clothes, all of that kind of stuff, and just analyze what ranks in. We look at what ranks in London, what ranks in New York, what ranks in LA, and what ranks in Sydney, and we just analyze those search results, things like real estate, all of that stuff. And the thing is, there isn't a perfect page, because I know from analyzing that on a monthly basis that they're always changing. And so the beauty of looking at the actual search results is seeing what people are doing. Like, for example, Trustpilot recently, they saw a jump in there for their location pages, and they made some big changes in the last couple of months with the actual just making them far cooler from a user perspective. And so, yeah, just looking at who's changing, flights, all of those that are just, most of it's done online and they're really competitive. I would do what we do, where you just analyze all of that stuff and try and work out why. Okay, right, let's keep going. I'm going to take a couple at a time. What have we got? Okay, so all I've got here is migrated website. Should we get external links updated? So I'm guessing this person has basically moved domain, let's say, and it could be the same brand, but say from a .co.uk to .com, or it could be an entirely different domain altogether. But effectively, they've moved and they've got loads of links pointing to the original website. Should they try and get those updated? Andy, do you want to start with that?
Yeah, I think, was it the Guardian newspaper that sent in this question? So I think, yeah, I mean, we've done this for a couple of clients where, I mean, Kerstin is best placed to answer I guess the nuance of it. But with regards to the authority links, like sometimes we'll get projects in that are to try and manage that. So somebody's moved from a .co.uk to a .com, and they want us to go and reclaim the authority links that have been built, not necessarily by us all the time. So it's a case of contacting, pretty much every site that's DA 70 or above. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to mention Moz, in case I know a lot of proper SEO people like Kerstin hate Moz, so I'll be quiet. But I mean, I love it because I'm thick, so it is fantastic. So yeah, everything with DA 70 or above, we'll typically go to those news outlets and try and get them to change the link. We've done it for one client that's had 700 authority links from around the world that we're trying to do it, and we managed to convert about 40% over. It's a painful ball ache of a task. I don't know whether you need to do it for the smaller links, but I'll leave that to Kerstin and Joe.
Kerstin, what are your thoughts?
Nothing against Moz, for the record.
Headlines of Search Engine Lab later. Kerstin hates Moz.
Kerstin hates Moz, absolutely not. No, all good here. We're all friends. Yeah, so I would probably, with anything that you work on, look at what's the effort, what's the outcome, is it worth the time invest? And so if you have some very, very good links, as Andy just described, there is a chance that you could get them updated. I would attempt to do that, but only for the ones that are really high authority, high value for you. And again, I wouldn't spend months and months trying to chase people to update links. I think you can have more impact doing something else with it, with that amount of time. But yeah, for the really strong ones, I would attempt to get them updated. But if there's thousands, millions of links, I think with the redirects, you should be able to contain most of that. So yeah, a bit of a sensible approach to that.
Great. And Joe, do you have any thoughts?
It was just to say, add to that, if you are doing this and of course prioritizing which ones you reach out to ask for the link to be changed, you could also think about linking to your deeper level pages if you have only been doing a bit of a link building strategy, to the home page and just do a couple of the other pages. You may want to combine it with, okay, actually, let's rethink our sort of backlink strategy. Let's reclaim some of these older backlinks and redirect them to a more relevant, potentially, and a deeper level page.
Yeah, I've been in this situation a few times, and it's like one of those that, a bit like Kerstin originally said, it's sort of like you could do that, or we could spend the time on trying to earn loads of other links by doing new campaigns and so on. And there's also the worry that they're just going to remove it altogether as well. So I think there's sometimes it's just leave it as long as it's redirecting properly. Andy, any thoughts on it? If you guys get asked to do that, any thoughts on how you get somebody like would you contact the journalist? Are you contacting the publication? Is it the online digital editor? Who and how do you get them to do it? Any thoughts?
Well, let's go back to a really good point that you just made, that sometimes, because journalists are notoriously spiky, and yeah, you just need to be careful who you approach. So obviously we know that, the Daily Mail very often follow link out, and typically, because they're a bit shady, when they'll change the follow link to a no follow link after 3 months. I always think that's just to stop PRs pestering them. So yeah, I probably wouldn't go back to a Daily Mail and try and get them to change the link. But yeah, you will go back to the journalist that's written it, and if they've actually left, you'd go to the editor of that section and ask them if they can change it. So yeah, really straightforward. You don't need to go to the web team. They won't really get involved in the editorial content for fear of getting shouted at by the needy journalist. So yeah, just go back to the journalist that's written it.
Great. Awesome, thank you. Right, So this one, so we miss Google consumer surveys for collecting PR statistics. What other options are there for link building stories? Andy, are you all right to kick off on this one?
Yeah, so I think SurveyMonkey is kind of like the standard now for people who don't want to go down the route of YouGov or OnePoll or places like that, because they are a little bit pricey. So with SurveyMonkey, you go and set up your survey, and then you can pay for people to get responses. It's a tool that we use. Thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of media stories have been based on the back of SurveyMonkey. There's this kind of myth that you have to use YouGov or OnePoll, who are actually fantastic. And if you can use them, do use them. But for clients that are tighter than a duck's arse, you have to improvise. And SurveyMonkey is that fantastic opportunity for you. I would always say as well that, work with companies that have built their own databases. So we have a database of people that we can send surveys to. That feels like a real dirty sales plug. It's not. Loads of people do it. Yeah, but SurveyMonkey's the way forward.
Yeah, for what it's worth, it's fine to do a sales plug as well. We work with 10 Yetis and we do it all through them. So that's that's fine. Kerstin, have you got any thoughts? Do you guys do polls or anything like that, or do surveys?
I was just thinking about the clients with a tight budget that Andy mentioned, and what they could be doing. And we're in a lucky position that we have a tech platform with thousands of users, so we have a lot of our own data. And this is always great for any kind of content that we create, but we also do bespoke reports. So we tend to do comparison with reports that were maybe just published. Then we compare that to our own data, our own insights, and that's how we create data-led stories. So it's a very cost-efficient way for us, but of course not everyone has that level of insight based on what they already have. But that's a way for maybe being budget conscious if you do have some data.
Yeah, so being budget conscious, if you don't have your own database, but you've maybe done your own community, or you know a lot of people in the industry, I would maximize your connection. So use your network that you already have, whether it's you run events or whether you do a newsletter on the side. This is more for people that have a small budget or are running a freelance sort of business as well as the main job, as many people do, I guess, when they start going out on their own.
I think I'll just add into there that you need to understand what kind of data sample sizes you need as well. People think you need tens of thousands for media. As a general rule of thumb, you need over 2,000 for a national media survey. You need 500 for a B2B survey. And if you do what we coin, there's these sort of snap overnight polls, anything around 1,000 people is enough, to give you credibility to speak to the national press about it. So, so it's not, people have this perception you need to go out and get 10,000 responses in order for it to be a credible national news story. That really isn't the case. And that isn't the case globally as well. We've never, for example, needed to get 3,000 people for it to land in America or the UK. It's 2,500 nationally.
Yeah, and just on that point, actually, I want to highlight the fact that I don't know if anyone obviously looks at small print when you're watching TV adverts, but companies like L'Oreal, they say, 57% of women agree with whatever this face cream. And you look at the amount, they interviewed like 200 people. So,
yeah, I wish we could get away with that with the national media. That would be fantastic. Yeah.
I always do think that when they do those overnight polls, like you were saying, Andy, and they sort of call on how the country is feeling about, say, a prime minister or something, and then when you look at the detail, you're like, there are however many, like 8 million people just in London alone. They sort of base it on sort of a couple of thousand. But what about in terms of using things like Hotjar, for example, and trying to collect information from your own website if you've got enough traffic? So would that be biased? Can you use that stuff? Because I'm guessing when you go out, you usually say X amount of people from the UK, age between whatever. Have you ever done that?
Yeah, I think, well, we've not used Hotjar, no, but I think you need to be prepared to give where your database or where your sample has come from. So obviously, we work quite a lot in the affiliate space. So if we say that, XYZ 2000 right-wing Americans who use a money-saving website, have done that, have said, yeah, let's vote Trump, then that's probably not representative of the whole of America. So you do need to be careful, and you do need to make sure your sample sizes or the people that you're talking to is a fairly even demographic split. Otherwise, Christ, you'll be firing some right old nonsense out.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you. So we're almost halfway there. And I've got a pretty big question. So Joe, I don't know if you want to jump in, or should we keep going?
No, I thought you said pretty sorry, pretty big question. I thought you were going to say that and I was going to answer, but no, you haven't said it yet.
Okay, cool. I'm going to go for it then. Right. My website was affected by a Google update. What are the top things I should check to identify the problem? So obviously there's been three Google updates in the last 4 months, which is quite unusual. And Kerstin, I think you're probably a good person to start on this, because obviously you work in-house. And if one of the sites that you were working on was hit by a Google update, when I say hit, it just means others have been rewarded over you. What would you do first?
They can't comment, never happened.
Yeah,
That'd be great.
Resignation letter in. I've got another job. Sorry. Yeah.
I just left and went to Hawaii. No, I would check, was it really the update or coincidence that it happened at the same time? If you're fairly certain it was the update, I would check what was impacted, because you can get hit in several ways, right? Was it site-wide? Was it just a few pages? So I would do an investigation that goes from the broader to the more granular, and really try to figure out, if it was a section of my site, what is different than to other things. So unfortunately, my advice is just to really pull up your sleeves and do it bit by bit, start from broad and try if you can narrow it down, because sometimes it's really difficult to pinpoint, right? It's not, oh, this one thing is the thing that caused it. It just doesn't work like that. And also see if you've done something, that might have caused that just recently. So it's a lot of investigation and trying to narrow it down bit by bit to then maybe find the thing that would have caused it. I would also research or speak to others if they were also hit. Are there some common things? Maybe someone's already done some analysis that you can find online and see, okay, other websites were hit because of this and that reason, or at least that's what people think might have caused it. Then you can check that against your website. So it's just a very laborious process, I would say, to try to find what maybe could have been the cause, and then try to fix that, try to improve, look at, again, depending on the update, but look at what are you doing that's maybe not in line with general recommendations, something that might not the greatest thing for your website visitors that could be improved. So investigation is what needs to happen.
Investigation. So I'd also say, just on that was a good way that you outlined it. You're planning how to do it. I'd also say, if you were in-house, and that you definitely do the manage expectations and you put a plan together, with working with an agency or agency side, and your client has obviously found this update or seen the results. Again, manage expectations and put a plan of action together, a checklist, like you've mentioned, of what things have changed and bit by bit, so you can record that. And also, if there are other websites in the same industry that have seen an update or a negative impact from that update, that can also be a little bit, I guess, reassuring in a way that you are not the only one. It could be like an industry thing that some industries have been affected by certain updates. But the other thing I'd like to add is, don't panic, because everyone's been there. So, it will get better.
Sorry,
go on.
No, after you.
I was going to say, yeah, that's a very good point. And I think whether you're in-house or you work with clients, also letting them know ahead of time, be proactive about your communication around these things. Nothing might happen at all, But at least if you've flagged, hey, there are updates currently, we're monitoring what's happening, that puts you in a much better position than just going, oh crap, what happened? Now I need to explain this somehow. I don't know what caused it. So being very, very proactive with your clients or with your stakeholders in-house. And then what Joe said, make sure you have an action plan, you communicate that action plan, and to show that you're on top of things as much as you can be.
I was just going to add, I guess, coming in from a slightly different angle, we work with quite a lot of clients that come to us because they've been hit by an algorithm change, and they think the answer to that is throwing a bucket load of authority links at it and it will fix it. So what we would typically do is cover our eyes, go to Google Search Console first and just check, peek through our eyes and check they've not had a manual action penalty, which is the naughty step of all naughty steps. And then, we use a tool, and I'm sure there's loads of other tools out there called SEOtesting.com. And pretty much everything that maybe our web devs have tweaked over the last 6 months is logged in there. So in theory, when you start to see the drop happening, you can see what changes you'd put in place. Now, obviously, Ahrefs and Google Analytics has the ability to add those notes as well. But yeah, SEOtesting.com has saved our ass so many times where, we've just made one slight change. I think a really good example is when there was all that panic. Again, I'm straying into a territory I don't really understand, so I'll wait for Kerstin to tell me the truth. When there was all that panic about Google substituting titles for H1s in the SERPs, and everyone quickly went and rewrote all of their H1s, and it caused kind of disarray for about 3 months. I think when people then changed some of them back, they saw their results started to recover. So I think essentially what both these guys have said around not panicking is important, but also looking at what you've done and having a clear audit trail of what you've done over the last 6 months.
Yeah, definitely. And just on that one that you said about the audit trail, I do think sometimes we get I heard this expression like into the weeds, with SEO, that you're doing like individual tasks, but then you don't sit back and think, okay, what have I done like the past 12 months? And it is really important when there are updates happening. And if you have been affected, particularly if you've been affected, to look at, what did you change both off page and on page that may have potentially contributed to that drop in traffic.
I think just to add as well is when it comes to something like that, so when there's a Google update and say, for instance, you see a drop in traffic, you also assume that you've done something wrong, but actually sometimes it's just that other websites being rewarded that weren't before. And so as well as looking at those websites that have been also negatively affected, trying to look at and understand the ones that have been rewarded and are now sitting in those top positions for the terms that you were sitting, and trying to work out what are they doing differently that you and say some others aren't. And the only other thing I would say is obviously there are, like Joe said, about not panicking, but also reaching out to other people. So obviously if you've got the budget, you can work with agencies, but there's also things like this. And if you're, if you don't have the budget to work with somebody, that's the whole point in something like office hours. So whoever asks this question in future, if you want to actually share URLs and stuff, we will look at it beforehand and try and give you some more specific recommendations to your particular issue. Obviously there's no URL or anything here, but yeah, people when I've always found, if I've ever been in issues, you can reach out to people in the industry, and if they're passionate about this stuff, they often want to lend a hand, which is why John Muller used to do this in the first place. And there was a whole community of people that used to jump in and help these people. So yeah, I would look at basically who's done well, use things like this, and obviously you're probably going to realistically spend the next few months in Search Console as well, so be prepared for that. And also, like Joe said about don't panic, there aren't any quick fixes as well. It's all, and that's, so set those expectations. In reality, it's about if it's a core update, it's their quality update, so it's usually that it's a bigger issue than just fixing a few H1s or something like that.
So just before Mike reads out the next question, I wanted to also just remind everyone that if you do have any of the questions, please do submit them here. So I've just shared a link in the chat, goodsignals.com/SEO Office-Hours, and we'll be answering your questions on the show. You can also, attend also events that are happening in the industry. There's also Search London on Tuesday, and you can also meet many other people in the community at those events offline, and also on there's a lot of digital communities. And if you don't know the answer, a lot of us don't know, but together we can find out for you. So submit your questions to the SEO Office Hours and we can answer them next week.
Awesome. Okay, I can see a website's just been put in the chat actually. So I'll tell you what, because we've just spent quite a bit of time on that question, what we'll do is I'll have a look at that afterwards and either get back to the person directly or we'll talk about it, depending on how serious that is to that person. I will, we'll go through it next week. Does the amount of code on a page matter? So some tools indicate that my content is 3% and my code is 97%. Kerstin, are you happy to start? I can start if you want. It's up to you.
I asked ChatGPT yesterday for alternatives to it depends. I can't remember them all, but there are several ways to look at this. Well, I mean, if your actual content is only 3%, that's probably a bit low. So I would say there is the golden number to this. But yeah, absolutely. If there's some code bloat going on, you probably want to take care of that. You want to understand why the code is there and what it does, and if you can reduce that. But personally, I don't know of a magic balance between readable HTML and other code that is there to do other things. So yeah, happy for you to jump in, Michael.
Oh, sure. So actually, because I used to go to the office hours, the original one all the time, this is a question that came up time and time again. And I'm just gonna repeat what John said, which is basically no. And I feel bad now because I feel like I'm quoting somebody and they're not here to say whether I'm quoting them correctly. But obviously you get all these tools that tell you different things and so on. But in reality, it's more about does that amount of code affect how quickly your site actually loads? But very, very unlikely unless it's a library of code that it does. And so it's just one of those kind of shiny metrics that people like to use to basically try and say we need to fix this and we need to minimize this and so on. But yeah, it's as long as Google can access that content on the page, that's what's really matters. Okay, next question. So I've taken a few down so we can try and, because we've got 12 minutes left.
12 minutes.
So let's try and go through. Andy, you kind of covered this a little bit before on one of the other questions, but do you have any tips around how do you get journalists to include links?
Oh, good one.
Oh God, if there was a solid answer to that, I'd be sending this video from a yacht. So,
how do we know you're not on a yacht right now? It looks very good.
I really am not. So I think, I mean, there are some basics. Obviously, include live links in the press release that you send over. Make sure your press release isn't sent as an attachment and things like that. Copy and paste the press release into the bottom of your introduction email. And then modern day digital PRs will hate me for saying it, but it's about the relationship a little bit, isn't it? It's all well and good to get someone to cover a story. In modern day terms, that's quite straightforward. You send out something with an absolute kick-ass angle, people love it, they run it, and off you go. But then when you're starting to struggle and you're not getting follow links on the back of it, that's where the relationship comes in. And you can go to the journalist that you know and say, look, is there any chance you could make that into a follow link for me? If you do that cold to a journalist you don't know, they're going to tell you to get lost. So yeah, it's about the basics, making sure you've got a live link in your press release when you send it over, and generally then hope for the best and build on your relationships.
Perfect. Are you happy if we jump straight to the next one, or Kerstin, did you want to add anything?
No, all good.
Awesome. Okay, so this is somebody that went to Brighton SEO San Diego, and they've basically said, so is it recommended to naturally encompass link building digital PR into your SEO strategy? So Kerstin, do you guys, when you're putting your SEO strategy together, are you also thinking about link building, digital PR, that sort of stuff?
Depends on the budget that we have at that moment in time. I would say yes, I would consider it, of course. I mean, it's part of SEO, right? So I would definitely make it part of my strategy. But then it's up to you to figure out to what extent you can do that. Is it something you can do in-house? Is it something where you need external support? Do you have interesting things to say? So I would always try to get links from the things I'm doing anyway and make it a natural part of the process. But yeah, again, then it's up to you to define how far you want to take it. But I would definitely consider it and have it as part of the overall strategy.
Yeah. Andy?
Yeah, 100%. I think probably 10 years ago, probably 90% of our briefs actually came from SEO teams, even though I would class this to be a traditional PR agency. You know, I've been doing it for 30 years very badly. So I think as that's, you know, as that time's moved on, PR and SEO has kind of blurred into one. You know, and I can think of examples where I've been a bit twitchy. So we, along with probably many other agencies, had Louis Vuitton get in touch about 5 years ago, their SEO team, saying that all of a sudden they decided they wanted their website to rank. Because if you remember, they built websites that they didn't care whether they ranked or not. They just wanted them to look absolutely pretty. I was going to say Gucci, but then I realized that that's a clash with Louis Vuitton. So they came to us and said, look, they wanted us to do an authority link building campaign for them. And we had to be honest and say, if your brand team knew you'd come to this, you'd be taken outside and shot against the wall, because there's absolutely no way you want a digital PR team that's not fully aligned with the brand team sending stuff out. You know, if we were to go out with one of those surveys that are, you know, 9 out of 10 people in Manchester have got a fake Louis Vuitton bag, their brand team would gone absolutely crazy. So you just need to communicate with your brand team. And I say that having come from an in-house background. So I used to work for Unilever, AXA, First Group, all in-house, and then I set up the agency. So I know how important it is, all of the marketing function, you know, web and SEO included, all speaks as one.
Yeah. And it's sort of, I always find sometimes when people come to us and they talk about everything is completely separate. And sometimes we work with teams where they've got a separate outreach team to SEO team to marketing team and so on. And I think a lot of the time it's just about what Kerstin said as well, about, you know, just telling people what you're doing and seeing if you can take something and use it in different ways. So use it on your site for content, or go and tell people about it, or use it for interesting stories for social. And it's just, to me, it's just like a natural thing. If it makes sense to tell people about it, you're not necessarily doing it purely for links, but you're trying to get into places that, you know, potential customers might be, or it's valuable to have some sort of reference from there. Joe, did you have anything that you wanted to add to that one?
No, I think you guys summed it up quite well. We can move to the next one because we're running out of time.
No, sorry, a terrible sort of direction from me there. No, I can't find the question, but it's here somewhere. I must have dropped it, but I do remember it. And it was one about how do you get your story in front of a journalist? So how do you make sure they open your emails? How do you get them? How do you get them to sort of cover or find out about what you're doing? Andy, you're probably the best person to start with this one, if that's all right.
Okay, just before I do, I just want to say, because I know we're running out of time, I think I want to say a massive thanks to John and Danny Sullivan, who've got loads of grief recently online. So I want to say a massive thank you to them. Massive thank you to Calvin as well for doing Brighton SEO, which is great. So how to get coverage? Really simple. Have a really good story. If your story's interesting, the media will love it. If it's really boring, they won't. The number one thing that we talk about is, has it got the pub factor? So can you imagine chatting to your mates down the pub about the story that you've done? And I think that is the key driver. If you want the sort of nuance of how you send it, so you have a catchy headline, don't do any of that or forward nonsense to try and trick the journalist into opening it. Have a really catchy headline, subject line. Don't waffle, which is ironic given how much I waffle in the email intro, and just get straight to the point with the key elements. I always say it hasn't changed in the 30 years I've been doing it. Who, what, why, where, when, add in a how. If you tick all of those 6 boxes and it's interesting, they'll run it, no matter if you have a relationship or don't have a relationship.
Okay, cool. And sorry, I'm going to jump in as well, just because I've worked with the guys at 10 Yetis quite a bit. And when you just said the pub factor, then I've so said that to other people, thinking it was me, but I've totally taken that from you guys. Because that's what whenever I'm training teams and stuff, that I always use that expression, and it's so true. And I think what I've also learned from you is just being able to very quickly say what it is. So like we've done campaigns together, like, built the Guinness World Records world's largest bra. That it takes seconds to say that, the competition to find Team GB for the Naked Sledding World Championships, it's like those kind of things. Very quickly, you're able to say it to a journalist, either on email or on phone calls. I think the other thing I've learned working with you guys is is sort of standing out. So not just via email, but we've done things where we've actually sent things to journalists, and so we've brought things to life. So I remember years ago, we did an I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here inspired corporate event, and we sent journalists edible animals like insects and stuff in the post. They didn't know that at the time. They just got these insects with the press release and so on. But obviously it really kind of stood out. And we've done other things like that where we've sort of tried to bring the press release to life and make it memorable. So yeah, I just wanted to add that. Kerstin or Joe, did you want to add anything in terms of how to get in front of journalists?
I think if you're not very creative, brainstorm with other people or speak to you two.
Yeah, come and brainstorm on here. Actually, that would be a fun thing.
That for me is one of the more difficult things, and I think for other people as well. Trying to come up with an idea and try and get that catchy headline. So I think it would be we could probably have sort of a brainstorming sessions here on the SEO office hours. But if you do have actually a team that you're working with, go in a room and actually you write some stories on a piece of paper, one line per on the piece of paper, fold it around, and then someone else writes something, folds it, then you fold it around, pass it around the table, and in the end you might have 20 new ideas. So it's always better to work with others if you're not so creative.
Yeah. There's also sorry, I feel like I'm now selling 10 Yetis. Andy, I'm doing a better job than you, I think, of that. Is that there is PR moment, and every week that you do the good and bad PR stuff, Andy, where you've
I don't want to talk about that. Come on, yes, it is.
But it is really useful, actually. So they it's mainly Andy that does it, but some of the team does as well, where they talk about some good examples of PR on there, and some bad examples. I tend to focus more on the good stuff on there because it can be a good way to come up with ideas. But I feel like you've been doing that for about 10 years, haven't you?
I think I met them for the first time after writing that column. I've been writing it for 11 years now. But there is another one as well called Famous Campaigns, which is really good, which is owned by Taylor Herring, set up by Rich Lee from Radioactive PR, who obviously I know very well. But yeah, I think ideation is the hardest thing, and it's just got harder after COVID, it feels, because teams aren't coming together as much, and online brainstorming is, I probably get shot for this because everyone wants to work remotely, but I find it incredibly hard compared to being face-to-face, sat in a room, all working together. I always think that works well. But yeah, ideation is the hardest part of trying to make a story work well.
Yeah, definitely. Kerstin, am I allowed to ask you one really quick question? Because it feels like we've got like probably 30 seconds left. If you can.
Challenge, yes.
So does the data collected by Google Chrome have any impact on ranking a website? And any thoughts?
It depends.
We need to ask John. I feel like Google always say, no, nothing has an impact. We don't collect user data and we don't use it for rankings. So I think the official answer would be no, whereas my own thought is probably yes. I mean, it does in a way because you get tailored search results, right? So just based on that, on your location, what else you've consumed on the internet. So of course, there are some, I guess, aspects that change how we see search results. So I would say to some extent, yes, but I don't know exactly what's used to, what weighting it's used. Don't know.
Yeah, Joe, I guess somebody's just pointed out.
Yeah, they use CURX data, Crux data. So probably most of it's a yes.
Yeah, I guess if you look at it, from that aspect, true.
Yeah,
Good
all
point.
the page experience stuff is all
Yeah.
based on users, isn't it? And so I guess that must come from it. That comes from there. Great. We'll stop there. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you to Kerstin, Andy, and Joe. That was an awesome SEO office hours. Way more fun than past ones, I would say.
And we only had 7. It depends.
Yeah, hey.
So, we had very clear and concise answers. So thank you very much. And
Too bad.
Yeah, it was very good. Thank you. And anybody that wants to join us in the future, please do leave your questions in the on the Good Signals /SEO office hours, and we can answer your questions at the next SEO office hours. And also, you could come on the show, and also you can watch the pre-recordings, the recorded versions as well.
Cool. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a lovely rest.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.